My name is Utkarsh Singh, and in this short presentation, I would be talking about a remarkable similarity which I observed between the teachings of the Vedanta philosophy and brain science. Now, what is Vedanta? As you see here, the word Vedanta is comprised of two words, Veda and Anta. Veda meaning knowledge and Anta meaning end. So Vedanta means the end of knowledge, the culmination of knowledge. So the Vedanta philosophy basically talks about how an individual can reach towards self-realization. Self here means the ultimate reality, the supreme reality, or the supreme consciousness. And a part of this Vedanta philosophy talks about how we can use the intellect to control the mind. So the intellect, the word for intellect is buddhi in Sanskrit, and for mind it is man. Now, what are the intellect and the mind? So the intellect is the ability of a person to think rationally, logically, to take rational decisions, to critically examine, to understand things, to analyze, to take judgments, whereas the mind is the seat of emotions, feelings such as love, hatred, jealousy, pleasure, pain, our likes and dislikes, our impulses, stress and anxiety. So in this way, the functions of the intellect and the mind have been differentiated. And also, if you see this diagram, you would see that the body contains the mind and the intellect, and these two components help the body to act in the world outside. Now, coming to the similarity which I observed with the triune brain model. So, the triune brain model is a hypothesis which was proposed by an American neuroscientist called Dr. Donald MacLean in the 1960s. And this hypothesis says that the brain is composed of three parts. And this is not just true for the human brain, it is also true for the brain of animals, mammals. And so the first part, or the part which was the first to be developed, is called the reptilian brain. It is also known as the lizard brain. And so the functions the function, the many of the functions which we do not actually realize and which are in an autopilot mode, such as breathing, blood circulation, breath, or our heartbeat, the temperature of a body, the balance in a body. So these are taken care of by the reptilian brain. And then we have the animal brain, or the paleomammalian brain. It is also called the limbic system. So the limbic system is responsible for functions such as emotions, memories, feelings, habits, attachments. And then the part which was the last to be developed is the neocortex, or the human brain. And the neocortex is responsible for cognitive functions, for reasoning, rationalizing, consciousness, language, understanding the language, imagination, visual perception, and things like that. So for the purpose of this presentation, where I talk about the similarity, I would be focusing on the limbic system and the neocortex. So the limbic system, as I already mentioned, it is the emotional brain, and it can also be compared to the unconscious or the subconscious mind, whereas the neocortex, or the human brain, can be compared to the conscious mind, which is something which is in our conscious control. So we can consciously think or think of something else, or we are conscious when we take certain decisions. As I said, that the reptilian brain was the first to be developed in the life forms. So, in the lower life forms, such as the reptiles, uh, the reptilian brain is the dominant, and it plays the dominant function. In other higher animals, mammals, we have the limbic system, which plays the dominant role, and this is the system which was also dominant in the archaic humans or the early humans. So as the archaic humans evolved into modern humans, we observed that the neocortex was developed. It grew more, it grew bigger, it became more compact, and so the neocortex is responsible for these functions, for example, self-control, judgment, compassion, planning, focused attention, and things like that. So clearly this diagram also depicts that as we go to higher life forms, the structure of the brain changes, the size of the neocortex also changes. So you can see the amount of folds, which are called the gyrus and the sulcus, they are also increasing as the life forms are as the level of the life form goes on increasing. So, but you should also be aware that this is not to suggest that Homo sapiens are in any way superior life form and the other life forms are inferior. No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that the brain of a human being is most adapted to be to for survival in the environment in which human beings live. Similarly, the brain of a dolphin is the most adapted to the aquatic or marine environment, and same is the case for apes, because they are more suited to living near trees, climbing trees, and so forth for the other life forms. Same thing, you can see that the number of folds increase as we move on from mouse to monkey to humans. Now coming to the second similarity, we have, so as I said that as I talked about the Vedanta philosophy in the beginning, so Vedanta is, the other name for Vedanta is Upanishad, and one of the Upanishads is the Kathopanishad, and there is a famous analogy which the Kathopanishad talks about, and this is the human body and chariot analogy. As you can see in this picture, so the Kathopanishad compares the human body to a chariot, and it says that the 5 horses in the chariot are the senses of the human body, and the rope which controls these horses is the mind, and the rope in turn is held or controlled by the charioteer. So the rope is compared to the mind, the charioteer is compared to the intellect. So the rope is the mind or the man, and the charioteer is the intellect or the buddhi, and these are the senses, the indriyas. So as you see that it is the charioteer who has the control of the rope, and the ropes are able to control or direct or discipline the horses. And if the charioteer is not able to take control of the mind, the senses will get unstable, so they will go helter skelter, and so the body would not be stable, the chariot would not be stable. Now coming to the neocortex, we see that there are various lobes in the neocortex which are responsible for different functions. For example, the visual perception or the visual information is processed in the occipital lobe, the auditory information is processed in the temporal lobe. Our cognitive skills, thinking process is taken care by the frontal lobe. Now, I have put this slide to show that the prefrontal cortex is responsible for the reasoning and decision making. Now, when I say reasoning and decision making, I hope that you can see the similarity that the same function is performed by the intellect. Now, this is the main similarity towards which I want to draw your attention. So, if you see here, and remember the chariot analogy which I gave, that the senses are controlled by the horses are controlled by the rope, and the rope is controlled by the charioteer. Similarly, the senses in the human body, the sensory information first pass through the limbic system, that is the emotional brain. So, for example, our auditory information first go through the olfactory bulb, and then it is processed in the temporal lobe. So, from the senses to the limbic system and then to the neocortex. Similarly, the other sensory information first goes through the thalamus, and then it is processed to the other lobes of the neocortex. So, as you can clearly see now that there is a striking similarity between the human body chariot analogy in the Kathopanishad and what happens in the brain. And also we can also look at this in this way, that it is the charioteer which controls the mind, and the mind controls the senses. In the same way, the neocortex or the thinking brain or the human brain can actually control our emotion, that is the emotional brain. So, we can use the neocortex, the thinking brain, to control the emotional brain, and then this emotional brain can direct the senses to act in an appropriate manner. So, it's a two-way communication, so to say, that so if we are not aware or conscious of our neocortex or the intellect, then we won't be able to take control of the limbic system, that is the mind. And when the mind is not in control, the senses would not be in control, the horses would not be in control. I have also put up this figure to show that you see here the amygdala. So, the amygdala, hypothalamus, hippocampus, these are the main parts of the limbic system. So, the emotions such as fear or threat perception is taken care by the amygdala, and then other functions such as emotional regulation, sleep, appetite, sex drive is taken care by the hypothalamus. And the cognitive functions is taken care by the neocortex. The prefrontal cortex is responsible for logic, rational thought, decisions, planning, very similar to the functions of the intellect, which I have discussed in the very beginning. So, this was the striking similarity which I observed, and I wanted to share with you all. And also in the end, I would say that while I was searching more on this topic, I saw this web page, and so this particular similarity which the author has drawn also kind of acted as a validation. So, the author has also compared the intellect with the neocortex. So, I hope you found this video to be helpful. Do leave your comments and views in the section below. Thank you for your patience.